She is the worst offensive player.
She's not very offensive competent, bro.
Caitlin Clark laughing at Angel Reese's missed layup.
Generational meme.
To lose the game. Here it is. Here's the video. She can rebound everything, but bro.
Angel Reese, possibly the greatest basketball player in the history of America. Oh, wow. Look at those moves. Yeah, that shot is really hard with the hoop wide open.
Who's the best player in the country?
I feel like I'm the best player in the country.
WNBA draft. The Indiana Fever select Caitlin Clark, University of Iowa.
What if one heated moment on the court revealed more than anyone expected? During a tense Atlanta Dream matchup against the Indiana Fever, Angel Reese was caught demanding that a teammate clear out and give her room to operate. The teammate moved, Reese got the space, and suddenly all eyes were on her. But what happened next turned that moment into a viral controversy. Reese missed an open opportunity at the rim, Atlanta failed to close out the game, and the internet immediately connected the sequence to the growing Angel Reese.
The key three. I'm thinking to myself, okay, ATL is going to actually win this game, and then we get down to the end of regulation, you guys. And I'm like, okay, Ron Howard, open three. She's going to hit it. No, she does not. Angel, you got it. Put back layup, game winner. No. And then Nas again caught it, put it up. No. I'm just like, oh my God, like, are we serious? How does that happen? And all of you guys, baby, my girl Angel, all right, back up off her, okay? Like, back up off of Angel. We know that she missed that layup. We get it.
Caitlin Clark rivalry. Then cameras caught Caitlin Clark appearing to smile as she walked past. Was it simply an ordinary reaction, or did this moment expose a much bigger problem for Atlanta? Stay with me, because what happened next raised questions about Reese's performance, leadership, and the pressure surrounding the Dream.
The Dream have the ball for the last shot, game's tied, and Angel Reese has a bunny layup basically by herself, uncontested, and she cannot make that layup. She had 14 rebounds yesterday, 5 of them offensive. I'm not sure how many were off her own misses because I was at camp and got home for the end of regulation and then overtime. But her making that or missing that layup, you just knew. And she looked kind of crestfallen, and she should be because you ought to be able to make a damn layup.
That missed opportunity became even more damaging because it happened in the exact kind of situation where Atlanta needed someone to take control. The game was tied, the clock was winding down, and every possession carried enormous pressure. Reese had already demanded room earlier, but when the ball eventually came to her near the basket with a clean look, the result was not what Atlanta needed. The shot missed, the rebound bounced away, and the Dream were forced into overtime. That single sequence became the easiest thing for critics to replay.
If your best player for Atlanta could make a layup, I wouldn't have this gleeful smile that I have on my face right now. It's a layup. You're 1 foot away. Make it, please. You have a fast break layup by yourself early in the game. How you shoot fast break layups fast break layups by yourself at 50%? I don't know. I can't explain it. But Caitlin Clark, 26 points today.
But there was more to the game than one possession. Reese still finished with a strong rebounding performance, showing why Atlanta continues to rely on her physical presence around the basket. Her ability to chase offensive rebounds and create second chances remains one of the biggest parts of her value. The problem was that her offensive efficiency made those positives harder for some viewers to appreciate. And that's where the conversation around Reese became much bigger than the final score. Supporters could point to her rebounds, assists, defensive activity, and willingness to battle inside. Critics focused on the shots she didn't convert, especially the opportunities that came when Atlanta needed points immediately.
Reese, in particular, her energy shifted. I thought when she got some of those easy baskets to go in the paint.
Let's go back to Angel really quickly, though, because she was part of the catalyst that you saw to be able to change things around. And
it's been there. Like, sometimes the basket is too open.
I can't believe we had to listen to that garbage the entire halftime, the entire broadcast of the game while she is blowing the easiest first grade 1-inch layups you'd ever see. And Caitlin Clark is out there hitting logo bombs in her face, dropping 26 and 9 for 12 straight games. Instead of saying she's playing at an MVP level, they're out here glazing Angel Reese just like her fans do on social media. Caitlin Clark gets no love, not considered in the MVP conversation, will be the only player in WNBA history to be top 3 in points and number 1 in assists, and they're sitting here glazing Angel Reese. It's all about Olivia Miles and Paige Beckers, which her team's winning. She's breaking all the records.
When those two narratives collided, social media turned the game into a debate about what Reese actually brings to the floor. Then there was Caitlin Clark. The rivalry between Clark and Reese has followed both players since college, and every matchup between Indiana and Atlanta brings that history rushing back into the spotlight. Clark didn't need to say anything for the internet to create another storyline. Cameras appeared to catch her smiling as she moved past Reese after the missed opportunity, and almost instantly, fans began interpreting the moment. Some viewers saw it as Clark simply reacting to what had happened during the game. Others treated the footage as another chapter in the rivalry. But the important thing is that the video itself doesn't prove what Clark was thinking. A facial expression can be interpreted in dozens of ways, especially during an intense professional basketball game. Still, that distinction didn't stop the clip from spreading. Within minutes, the conversation shifted away from the actual game and toward the personalities involved. One side defended Reese and argued that a single missed shot shouldn't erase everything she contributes. Another side argued that if a player wants to be viewed as a leader, she has to accept responsibility when the biggest moments don't go her way. And that brings us back to Reese's leadership. Being vocal isn't automatically a problem. Basketball teams need players who communicate, call out defensive assignments, demand better execution, and hold teammates accountable. The question is whether that leadership is matched by production when the same player is given responsibility. That's why the footage of Reese calling for space became so powerful. On its own, telling a teammate to clear out is completely normal basketball communication. Players create isolation opportunities all the time. But when the possession ends without points, critics naturally look at the entire sequence differently. Suddenly, the question isn't just, why did she miss? The question becomes, what happens when the player demanding the opportunity doesn't finish it? Atlanta's teammates publicly pushed back against the idea that one player should carry the blame. They emphasized that basketball is a team sport and that losses don't belong to one person. That response matters because it shows that, at least publicly, the Dream were not turning against Reese. But the debate continued anyway. Because professional basketball is ultimately judged by results, and late-game possessions are remembered far longer than routine plays in the middle of a game. A player can dominate the glass for an entire afternoon, but if the final image is a missed opportunity at the rim with the game on the line, that moment can overwhelm everything else. And for Reese, that is exactly what happened. The criticism became louder, the Clark comparison became unavoidable, and Atlanta suddenly had to answer questions about how it should handle future late-game possessions. The next challenge isn't simply getting Reese more touches. It's figuring out how to put her in situations where her strengths can be maximized while reducing the weaknesses opponents have learned to attack. Because if Atlanta can solve that problem, this entire controversy could eventually become nothing more than one painful game. But if the same pattern continues, the questions around Reese's role, efficiency, and leadership are only going to become louder. The missed opportunity became even more important because of when it happened. Atlanta had fought its way into a position to steal the game, and with the score tied late in regulation, every possession suddenly mattered. Reese found herself with a chance near the basket, and there was no defender making the shot impossible. It was the kind of opportunity players dream about having when the pressure is at its highest. But the ball did not fall, and Atlanta could not finish the possession before the clock expired. That immediately changed the conversation. Instead of talking only about how competitive the game had been, fans were replaying that final sequence over and over. Some argued that Reese had simply missed a shot that any professional player can miss. Others believed the moment exposed a bigger weakness in her offensive game. And because the game involved Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, the debate became much louder than it probably would have been in any ordinary matchup. Reese still had plenty of production to point to. Her rebounding remains one of her biggest strengths, and her ability to create second opportunities gives Atlanta something valuable inside. She also contributed in other areas, showing that her impact cannot be measured by shooting alone. But the criticism focused on efficiency because the most important opportunities came at the rim. That distinction became the heart of the argument. Supporters looked at the overall stat line and saw a player who battled throughout the game. Critics looked at the missed shots and asked whether those numbers truly reflected her impact during winning time. Neither side was willing to back down, and social media turned the argument into another chapter of the Reese versus Clark conversation. Then Caitlin Clark appeared in the footage. As the players moved around after the sequence, cameras caught Clark smiling as she walked toward the Indiana side. Almost instantly, the clip exploded online. Fans began suggesting that Clark was laughing at Reese's miss, while others argued that there was no way to know what Clark was actually reacting to. And that point is important. A camera can capture a facial expression, but it cannot automatically reveal someone's thoughts. Clark never needed to explain that moment for social media to create an entire story around it. The history between these two players was enough to make the smallest reaction feel enormous. That is what makes this rivalry so powerful for television and social media. Every possession can become a headline. Every missed shot can become a meme. Every smile can be interpreted as a message. But underneath all the noise is a legitimate basketball question about Reese. She wants to be an important voice for Atlanta. She communicates constantly, demands positioning, and expects teammates to execute. There is nothing unusual about a player being vocal. Great teams need communication. The challenge comes when that confidence is tested by difficult moments. If Reese wants to be viewed as one of Atlanta's leaders, the next step is not staying quiet. It is responding after mistakes. It is taking the criticism, returning to the next possession, and proving that one missed opportunity does not define her. Her teammates publicly supported her after the loss, emphasizing that one player does not lose an entire game. That matters. There was no confirmed public evidence that Atlanta's locker room had turned against Reese. Still, the questions are not disappearing. Atlanta now has to figure out how to maximize Reese's strengths while improving the areas that opponents can exploit. If she becomes more efficient around the basket, the entire conversation could change. And that is why this loss may eventually become more than just a viral moment. It could become a turning point. The biggest question now is not whether Angel Reese can recover from one difficult game. It is what she does with the criticism that followed it. Every young player eventually reaches a point where talent alone is not enough. The weaknesses that opponents identify become scouting targets, and the pressure becomes greater with every nationally televised matchup. For Reese, finishing consistently around the basket is one of those areas that has received intense attention. Her rebounding ability is still a major weapon. When Reese crashes the glass, she can change possessions that looked finished. She brings physicality, competes for second chances, and gives Atlanta an interior presence that opponents have to account for. Those strengths are real, and one missed shot does not erase them. But the WNBA does not give players unlimited time to develop weaknesses without consequences. Defenses adjust. Coaches study tendencies. Opponents understand which shots a player is comfortable taking and which situations create problems. If Reese can become more consistent around the rim, Atlanta becomes much harder to defend. That is why the reaction to this game could eventually become useful for her. Instead of allowing the criticism to define her, Reese has an opportunity to answer it on the court. The next time Atlanta reaches a late-game situation, everyone will remember what happened against Indiana. The cameras will be watching. The fans will be watching. And every missed opportunity will probably be magnified. That pressure can either become a distraction or motivation. The same applies to Caitlin Clark. Their rivalry is no longer just a story from college basketball. Every meeting between Indiana and Atlanta now carries another layer of history. Clark's offensive production and Reese's rebounding impact create completely different ways of influencing a game, which makes comparisons almost impossible to avoid. But the constant comparison can also become dangerous. Reese does not need to become Clark, and Clark does not need to become Reese. Their games are built around different strengths. The better question is whether each player can continue improving the weaknesses that opponents are targeting. For Atlanta, that means finding the right balance in late-game situations. If Reese is on the floor, the Dream need to create opportunities that take advantage of her size and rebounding. But they also need reliable spacing, movement, and multiple options so that one possession does not become predictable. The coaching staff will have to evaluate those situations carefully. A single missed layup should never determine how an entire season is judged. At the same time, repeated mistakes in similar situations cannot simply be ignored. That's the balance Atlanta has to find. And publicly, the team appears to understand that. Reese's teammates defended her after the loss. They emphasized unity and refused to place the defeat entirely on one player. That is exactly what a professional team should do. Until players themselves say otherwise, claims that the Dream locker room has completely turned against Reese should be treated as speculation rather than established fact. But the viral footage has already changed the conversation. Now, whenever Reese demands space, fans will remember the possession. Whenever she misses close to the basket, critics will bring it up again. And whenever Atlanta plays Indiana, the rivalry will add another layer of pressure. That is the reality of playing in the social media era. One possession can become a national talking point before players have even left the arena. For Reese, the best response is simple: play. Crash the boards. Defend. Communicate. Finish at the rim. Make the next open shot. then make another one. Because eventually, the conversation will move away from the viral clip if her performances give people something new to talk about. And that's what makes the next chapter so interesting. The question isn't whether Angel Reese had a bad moment against the Fever. She did. The question is whether that moment becomes a defining image or simply another lesson in a long professional career. Atlanta still has reasons to believe in Reese. Her rebounding, physicality, and ability to create second chances remain valuable. But the pressure to become a more complete offensive player is real, and this game only made that pressure louder. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever will continue to be waiting on the other side of this rivalry. The next matchup will bring the same cameras, the same fan debates, and probably even higher expectations. If Reese answers with a strong performance, this entire controversy could look very different in hindsight. But if the same mistakes appear again, expect the criticism to become even louder. And that is why this story isn't really about one missed layup anymore. It's about what happens next. So now the real question is, was this just one frustrating moment for Angel Reese, or could it become a turning point for the Atlanta Dream? Reese still has major strengths, especially on the glass, and one missed opportunity does not erase everything she brings to the floor. But the pressure is clearly increasing, especially when every game against Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever becomes a national conversation. And what do you think? Was the criticism of Reese after this game fair, or did social media take one missed opportunity and turn it into something much bigger? And when you saw Caitlin Clark smiling as she walked away, do you think she was reacting to Reese, or was the internet simply reading too much into the moment? Drop your opinion in the comments because this debate is definitely not over. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next major WNBA story. Because the next time Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark meet, you already know everyone will be watching.